I'm Beth Russell from the Science on a Sphere team in Boulder, Colorado, and I'm here today to talk to you briefly about the new data sets we've been working on and some visualizations that we've created as well. So to get started, let's look at the SOS data sets. We kicked off the year with planet rotations. This is a great data set for comparing all 8 planets at once to show the different rotation rates. And you can really see the difference between those planets as they're all paired side by side. It's a really great astronomy data set to add to your playlists. Next up, we added the human climate niche. And what this data set does is looks at the land, the areas where people are located, and classifies them as more or less suitable based on conditions related to temperature and precipitation. It starts in 2020 and shows current conditions, and then shows how it's likely to change by 2070 based on the RCP 8.5 climate scenario. Some areas get better, some areas get worse. It's a nice data set to add to your climate change presentations. Next up, we added species richness data sets. We did it for amphibians, birds, and mammals. And it's a great way to look at the diversity of these different species around the world and to see just how many different types there are in different parts of the world. It's a really nice biology data set to mix in to our playlist. We worked with a researcher to get these put together, and he also provided for us another set looking at just the threatened species, again, of amphibians, birds, and mammals. And this is a nice way to look at areas where conservation would be most beneficial. So these are the areas where we have the most threatened species that can help direct conservation efforts to make sure we're really having a good impact in those regions. So take a look at all these data sets, make sure to get them added into your playlists. Now, this summer we've also worked with our communications team at NOAA to support some of their outreach efforts in getting the science of NOAA out. So it was really hot this summer and they needed some graphics to support that. So we took our land surface temperature data set here, we added the color bar and the timestamp and a NOAA logo and pushed this out to social media and other places as a way to help even more people see the various types of data sets that we have. This next example, we took our sea surface temperature anomaly, we cropped it down to just the Pacific, and then focused in, this clip is from 2015 when we had a strong El Nino, and the blob, the warmer water off the west coast there formed as well. This was used to support a research article that came out this summer on ocean heat waves and their impact on marine habitats. We also created some new data sets. So what we're looking at here is the Saharan air layer. We were able to generate this from a model that we run within our laboratory that looks at dust and how it travels around the planet. The Saharan air layer was in the news a lot this summer. So we started with this flat map here, but for social media and the news, we decided to wrap it around a globe and make it look a little more interesting to catch people's eye. Now, we weren't quite done yet, so we pulled it into After Effects. We added some camera angles and some lighting and shadowing, a starry background, and came up with this final product, which really makes for great supplemental graphics in the media and on social media and these various places, so that we're making sure to really broadly share our work. Here's another example. This one ended up on national television. It was a story on climate change, and in particular looking at the Arctic. July 2020 was the lowest July that we have had, and so this graphic from our classic snow and ice data set was used to create this. And then finally, we did a smoke graphic as well from all of the wildfires. Now, it's worth mentioning, we created these for our communications group, but we then pulled them back into SOS Explorer and created tours to go with them. So make sure to download the SOS Explorer app and go through the new tours that have been added, because you'll see a lot of these graphics there. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Steven Zepecki, and I'm working from the United States capital, Washington, D.C., the occupied land of the Anacostia. I'm a contractor for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, otherwise known as NOAA, and it is my pleasure today to share with you a new visualization, ship tracks. I dedicated 10 years of my life as a high school biology and environmental science teacher in some of the nation's neediest schools. As my career shifted out of the classroom, I found myself still supporting science education and programming as the manager of the Science on the Sphere exhibit located at NOAA headquarters, a position shared between NOAA's Office of Education and Satellite Visualization Laboratory. I've made it my professional goal to raise the awareness of the plethora of Earth monitoring resources at NOAA. Those of you who are part of the SOS network may have seen my environmental data visualization and education resource emails. These emails share timely and relevant environmental data and visualization resources to allow educators to build on their content knowledge and share resources to make learning fun and accessible. With that being said, I want to recognize our undervalued public servants, educators. They carry out the responsibility not only to inform students of specific content, information, and facts, but in many instances they are the caretakers, mentors, role models, and voices for those individuals who are often not heard. Educators are diverse in their forms and their styles, and in their pedagogy and their methodologies, and in their need for resources is never ending. I want to take a moment and thank you for your time, your service, and your stewardship with our communities. I also want to acknowledge NOAA's 50 years of science service and stewardship. NOAA prides itself in being a trusted source of environmental monitoring, weather and climate predictions, and aiding the safety of transportation of people and goods. Now, before I jump into this new visualization, I have one final acknowledgement. I want to give a very genuine thank you to NOAA cartographer Megan Bartlett for her dedication to NOAA electronic navigation chart development and her commitment to producing GIS products for Science on the Sphere at NOAA. Without her effort at NOAA's National Ocean Service, NOAA leadership, and the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, we would not be able to experience this beautiful new dataset. So let's get started. Sourced by VT Explorer, this visualization helps us see how AIS works. AIS stands for Automated Identification System and is the Maritime Navigation Safety Communication Systems adopted by the International Maritime Organization. The point of this system is to share a vessel's navigational data, including its identity, distance, speed and direction of travel, with nearby vessels for the primary purpose of maritime safety. Transponders on vessels and land automatically link to satellites to report vessels' locations, ensuring reliable ship-to-ship communications and allowing mariners to navigate waters safely. Let's review some of the important details of this visualization. This visualization focuses on August 6th to September 9th, 2019. Now, this is what the world would look like if it were flat and in SOS format. This visualization on SOS is truly humbling. We can clearly see how humans are really taking over Earth's one ocean. Notice the different colors in this visualization. Red hues are for large freight vessels such as tankers and cargo ships, and yellow, purple, and turquoise for smaller vessels. Observers can watch individual ships cross entire seas or stay within small localized zones. Each vessel track, long and short, represents 8 hours of travel. Some vessels travel much farther than others in 8 hours. Let's focus on Area 2. The story of globalization comes to life in this focus area. Notice the super busy zones near Hong Kong, Taiwan, Shanghai, Tokyo, and the Malacca Strait between the Malay Peninsula and the island Sumatra. Here, we see traffic jams on the water as the distance traveled within 8 hours decreases and even disappears while vessels wait their turn to go into port. This variation in vessel velocity creates pulses within this visualization. Now to the third focus area. Get out the way, and that's just what vessels should be doing during a hurricane. In this dataset, Hurricane Dorian beared down on the eastern coast of the United States, and the lack of vessels along the east coast shows the path of that major hurricane. This focus area highlights the daily movements of people. Turquoise fishing vessels south of the Galapagos go on their daily ventures out to sea to catch fish and their daily return to bring their catch home. The yellow passenger vessels around the Galapagos move tourists back and forth on daily tours. It's also important to notice that our oceans are not the only hot spot for travel. Larger rivers show the same daily movements of vessels. Notice the one yellow passenger vessel going toward Iquitos, Peru along the Marañón River. Larger rivers such as the Mississippi in the United States, the Amazon River in Brazil, and the Paraná rivers in Argentina are no strangers to larger freight vessels seen in red. Focus Area 5 moves us away from the equator and towards the poles. As we consider the impact of humans on the globe, we focus our attention to the Arctic Circle. The first week of September marks a time when sea ice is at its minimum. Here we can see the extended sea ice minimum where passenger vessels in yellow seem to stop at the edge of and cruise along the perimeter of the Arctic sea ice. Humans are changing the world, and this focus on the Arctic shows how anthropogenic global climate change is even affecting our polar ice caps. Science on the Sphere spectacularly showcases how humans shape and influence the environment. Consider this new AIS ShipTracks dataset for Science on the Sphere as another tool to help people understand the world around them.
Hello, welcome, and thank you so much for coming to this lightning talk. I wish I could meet you all in person, but I'm very glad to meet you virtually. My name is Kate Royce, and I'm a documentary filmmaker. I've been in this for a very long time, since 1985. And about 15 years ago, I started making spherical programs. So I've made several, about 15 now, for institutions like the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, the Aquarium of the Pacific, Ellis Island Immigration Museum, and others. And I approach this as a filmmaker. So I call what I do spherical cinema. So what do I mean by spherical cinema? Well, at its core, Science on Sphere is built on data sets. But to reach our audience, we really want to use film techniques. We want to use beautiful imagery. We want to use music. We want to use humor. We want to use drama. We want to use surprise. So I hope that the examples I'm going to show you achieve those goals. The first sample that I want to show you is called Currents, and it's from the Ocean Hall at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. I got to work with an amazing scientist named Colin Ware who does data visualizations. And we needed to talk about currents, but we wanted to hook our audience through some humor. So we decided to imagine what it would be like if you dumped rubber duckies on the ocean surface.
In a month's time, some duckies will travel great distances. Others will only creep along. At first, their movements seem chaotic, but underlying the confusion is a very complex system of surface currents.
The next sample is One Planet, and this program was shown at the Copenhagen Climate Summit. I got to work with Ned Gardner from NOAA and Maurice Henderson from NASA. And this one was challenging because we couldn't use narration. There are 5 official languages that are at the summit, and we couldn't narrate in all 5. So we used text on screen in all those 5 languages, but we really drove the emotion of this piece through music. And that was through the incredibly talented Robert Neufeld, who scored this for us. The last one I'm going to show you is called Made in Hong Kong. And boy, this was really different. It wasn't science, it was history. And it tells the story of Hong Kong's role in international trade. Again, I got to work with composers, which is such a gift. And these were composers here in Boston, but they were from China. And they were even able to find local musicians who played Chinese instruments. The other thing about this was we got to be pretty playful. So at one moment, we celebrate Chinese New Year by transforming the sphere into a lantern.
Just a bit like home. Hong Kong food exporters took advantage of these new markets. The Kowloon Company was one of the first to ship soy sauce overseas in 1917. And nearly 100 years later, it continues its traditional style. Today, the flavor of Hong Kong is celebrated in kitchens and restaurants far and wide.
So thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, please shoot me an email. I'm always interested in hearing from you. Thank you again.
Hi, I'm Rafael de Amier, the lead for the NOAA Environmental Visualization Lab. Between the time that data is downlinked from the satellites and shown to you on the Science on the Sphere or on your laptop or cell phone, there's a series of transformations it goes through. My team, the NOAA Environmental Visualization Lab, is one of those teams that creates content for the Science on the Sphere, and we make it available in several other ways. So if you go to the Science on the Sphere page and you click on the datasets, you'll find datasets like this sea surface height anomaly, which we create at the lab. And on that page that we were looking at, if you notice, there's a link where you can go to the FTP site. This FTP site takes you to the public.sos.noaa.gov site, where you can go in and download the same datasets that are being used on the Science on the Sphere. Now, I highly recommend that you use an FTP client instead of using a browser, a web browser, to access this data. When you download that imagery, this is what you'll get. You'll get a full Earth view at the established sizes for the Science on the Sphere, and with that color table that's already been predetermined. Showing it on the Science on the Sphere is great, but what if you want to transform it or use it for something else? I'm going to show you today 3 different ways that the NOAA VisLab makes the data available. 1. We make it available through our NOAA View Global Data Viewer. In this viewer, you can click on the Add Data buttons and it takes you through a series of menus. Here I clicked on Ocean, then I clicked on Physical, then Height, and it loaded the data set, and I had the choice of showing either the 10-day averaging or the monthly or the yearly averaging. Once it's loaded, you get a series of tools that allow you to browse through time. You can also capture an image, or you can click on the download button and either download a single date, or you can download a series of images over a date range. When you click on the info button, you can actually get information about this data set. And there's your FTP access button again. But in this case, it's not the same FTP server as before. This is number 2, the second way that we make data available. This is FTP at our NOAA NESDIS Visualization Lab.noaa.gov FTP site. Now again, you want to make sure you use the FTP : / if you're going to use a web browser, but as I said before, an FTP client is based, just like I'm using here. Now when you go to the site, you'll notice that there's a series of folders in there, and when you click on the View folder, it opens up a long list of parameters. Now within those parameters, there's the sea surface height anomaly, SSHA. And when you click on that, it will show you this folder where you can go into images. There's also a About SSHA file that talks to you about what data is in there. I'm going to continue going down into images. There I have a choice between color or grayscale. You can already tell that there's more options available here. I'm going to click on the 10-day, and I'm presented with a long list that we've been producing over the years. If you download the grayscale image, you'll see that it's a full resolution, so it's not at the Science on the Sphere resolution. This is just a quick list of all the different layers that we actually make available on that FTP site. Or download the those explainer README files that you can find on the FTP site. And I'm going to now go to 3. The third way that you can access the data in GIS, you can overlay a series of layers. Each one is a different field of information. One might have roads, another one might have place names, and each one is maybe coming from a different source. That's the beauty of GIS and its interoperability. So this site here, gis.nnvl.noaa.gov, and if you type in this full address, you'll be going to our REST services on our NNVL server, and you'll see the same list that you should already be familiar with this list. It's the same list that we were looking at before, and I'm going to be going into the SSHA, sea surface height anomaly, and there I'm going to find also the 10 days or the monthly or the yearly, and when I click on the 10-day one, I can even browse it quickly by clicking on the ArcGIS JavaScript link, and this is the full URL of this data. So what can I do with that data? Well, here I've logged into my NOAA Geo platform, which is ArcGIS Online, and I'm going to open up a new map. I can also use the desktop version of this if I wanted to, and where it tells me to enter the data, I'm going to enter that same link that I entered before into here, and bang, here it is. Loaded on my map, I have the sea surface height anomaly that I was looking at before. Make it either a 2D or a 3D map application with whatever widgets I want to add to it. So these are the 3 ways that we make data available to the whole world